Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Health, Human Services, and Aging Committee to order Wednesday, March 6th. Madam Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll for Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Mr. Sweeney.
Present.
Ms. Stevens.
Present.
Ms. Turner.
Present.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, has anyone signed in for public comment today?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one person signed in, Lou.
Welcome, Ms. Lou.
Good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
and congratulations to almost all of us. Yesterday was a day of a victory, a glorious day. I'm not talking about the weather. I'm talking about finally we made a big step. Comparatively, it's a big step to improve what we can help the homeless population with dignities and real care. And all of you have received my email showing you the live stream yesterday the county had made, and also 59 photos I took, including the important part you guys have already seen, the bathrooms. Of course, I love food too, since I'm at a place without food, so I definitely had a photo of the food a little bit. So at that time, when I toured the facility, I was yes, I did not sound as positive. I still sounded critical maybe, but that's because I'm eager to make that even better. So I did tell Mr. Michael Searing about the flaws I could see immediately, and the response was immediate. LMM has been very responsive to the community needs. Doesn't matter it's for the bigger picture or it's for the little tiny thing. Whatever they can find out, for example, from me or from other people, they always keep them in mind, or at least in the parking lot, that's what we call it. And whenever they get proper opportunities, they will put them into action. This is what we need. We need good community partners. However, funding is still a critical issue for all these hardworking nonprofits. If they do not get enough funding, it's very hard for them to hire the people with proper skills, knowledge to help. And it's very hard for them to do a thorough job to begin with. So I wish the upcoming levy, the HS Health and Human Services levy, will help out, since we already lost the opportunity with ARPA funds. And my concern is, all the improvement you could see yesterday, will those improvements come to the Hale, 2227 Payne Avenue, and the promising new building? We don't know, because the budget situation will be not the same. So please, watch out for us, and we should all keep up with the good work. Thank you very much again, and congratulations to at least we have a light for the homeless communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lou. Moving on, approval of the minutes from the February 21st meeting. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by, was that Sweeney or Miller?
I did.
Miller.
Miller, and seconded by Turner. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We have several matters referred to the committee today, and as you will see us going forward in this year, we have a lot of presentations that will be as well on the schedule. So welcome to the Center for Community Solutions for later on in the committee. Madam Clerk, if you could read the first item into the record, please.
Resolution 2024-0077, awarding a total sum not to exceed $50,000 to the Catholic Charities Corporation for capacity building development for the Catholic Charities St. Martin de Porres Family Center from the District 7 ARPA Community Grant Fund.
Right, welcome. Director McKenzie. I just want to make a little note that ARPA applications takes 3 total readings to go through full council, so it's a process for the community to be able to weigh in, or other colleagues, as it goes through the process. So welcome.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, County Council Chair and members of the council. My name is Carnice McKenzie, Agency Director at Catholic Charities St. Martin de Porres Family Center. I stand here before you today requesting ARPA funding to support capacity building development that will allow us to put an infrastructure in place to develop long-term funding streams, enhance community visibility, and ongoing implementation. The strategic planning process and the development of our funding strategies, from which we stood in 2022 to ask for funding for the implementation, for the strategic planning process to be built, revealed that the success of the plan is depending on us to fill some important capacity needs that must be addressed to ensure the sustainability of our plan over the next 5 years. Like I mentioned, in 2022, St. Martin requested and received ARPA funding to undergo a strategic planning process. The funds has resulted in a 5-year comprehensive strategy and a vision for our family center. Our strategic planning consultant led us through a dynamic and inclusive process that produced a plan that supports a new vision to be the lead agency connecting the Glenville community to economic, social, and environmental opportunities so they can thrive. The strategic planning process resulted in, from which you have in front of you, a new strategic direction and a vision for St. Martin de Porres, strategic planning goals and success measures for St. Martin de Porres for over the next 5 years, a growth strategy for existing programs and identifying new services, as well as a detailed funding strategy to improve long-term sustainability of Catholic Charities St. Martin de Porres Family Center. I should step back and say our center has been in existence since 1967. It is a full-service social service agency located in the Glenville neighborhood. We would like to continue these services, and that's why the strategic plan was so important for us to develop post-COVID-19. We are now ready to move to phase 2 of our strategic planning process, which is the implementation. According to Harvard, the Harvard Business Review, 60% of strategic plans fail during the implementation process. In our original request, we built in funding to retain our strategic planning consultant for 1 year following the development of the plan to support a successful launch. Stage 2 is underway with the community launch slated for March 21st of 2024. I hope you can join us. In order to ensure successful implementation, we will focus on 3 key goals that will require us to increase capacity. These goals include 1, developing a long-term funding stream, engaging in a fund development consultant to build our skill set in fundraising and to assist us in building a donor base and an effective fundraiser to support our strategic plan activities on a continuous basis for 2 years. Goal number 2 is our ongoing implementation support. We will continue to engage a strategic planning consultant with these dollars for 18 months to provide us ongoing evaluations, which is very vital, reporting, facilitation of our strategy meetings, and retreats to ensure the success of our plan. The last goal is to develop a marketing plan and an ongoing social support media person. We need this. We found out when we actually gone through our strategic planning process that social media and enhancing visibility in the community is very important, but we often struggle to try to find these dollars to do so. So we are wanting to engage a marketing consultant to develop a marketing plan around our strategic plan and to retain a social media specialist for 2 years to support to support and maintain our social media presence and improve our reach in the community. How does this project fit with the community and with ongoing projects in Glenville? Our plan was informed by the community and focuses on their specific needs. This was a year-long inclusive process that entailed our residents, community stakeholders, clients, staff, the whole nine. So we're very thankful of that. The strategy we developed addresses existing barriers and community priorities of Glenville. Our strategic plan did an extensive review of existing projects and proposed new projects to ensure they were aligned with our strategic priorities of the community. Receiving the capacity building funding, development funding, will help to ensure that the strategic priorities of the plan are adequately funded. It will also ensure, which is very important, we have expertise and capacity to ensure successful implementation of all future initiatives from our strategic plan. Lastly, it will increase the number of people that we serve by increasing our visibility and presence and positioning us to be the anchor institution of Glenville. Any questions? I'm done.
Thank you, Director. I want to open it up. I just want to say the majority of our neighborhood collabs sought ARPA funding to go through a strategic planning process, those that were located in District 7, and this council was very generous in offering ARPA dollars for them to go through their strategic planning process. So we'll hear when some of the agencies come back, how that process went. So I believe the director will be back to share that process as well. So any questions from my colleagues?
Yeah.
Councilman Miller.
Madam Chair, Director, could you summarize what the major services are that St. Martin de Porres Center provides?
Okay, we provide children and family services, and that includes after-school programs, summer camp, teen leadership program. We also provide services to families at risk through our community-based at-risk program. So these are families that work close with the Department of Children and Family Services, and we provide supportive services for these families. We also provide visitation if they are seeking visitation rights to see their children. We also do senior programming there. At St. Martin de Porres, we provide services Monday through Friday for our older adults. That program is from 9 to 2. We provide transportation, which is a great benefit, since that is one of the barriers that our seniors face a lot is with transportation. So we provide congregate meals as well as adult development, transportation, and home-delivered meals, which is another part, a piece of our senior program. We also provide emergency assistance to our Glenville residents who are in need of rental assistance, or food, if they need to have their rent paid or their mortgage, we provide that, birth certificates, IDs, etc. We also have a food pantry there. So many of our families monthly, and even if they're in emergency cases, yesterday we had police officers that showed up at our center because they know that St. Martin de Porres is here to help whenever, however. And they had a family who needed food. And so we provided food for them. We have some new programming coming up. We haven't signed a contract. I won't say anything about that program today, the contract aside. Those are the services. Help Me Grow services, I forgot all about that. Home visiting services for children 0 through 5.
Summer camp.
Oh, yeah, summer camp. Yeah, summer camp. I forget about that. It's coming up. This is for ages 5 through 17, We also provide teen leadership programs, and our teens, through a partnership through YOU, have an opportunity to work on site.
Other questions, Councilman Miller?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other?
That's a pretty comprehensive array of services.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say one thing before any other comments. I have to say thank you. What you have in front of you, this booklet right here, is a year-long process, and as a result of you guys awarding us the money for our ARPA funding for us to be able to do this. It is awfully hard as nonprofit organizations to be able to sustain funding for a strategic plan. So I thank each one of you for being able to fund our project. And so I made a copy available for you so that you can see. I also have the one-pager for you to see, which outlines our areas of focus. And then we'll have more to come. But, I mean, these are things, marketing dollars, I did not have. Programs like ours are always cut. We're asked to do more with less. And so this strategic plan really is our guide to helping us sustain. We've been in the community since 1967, and we want to remain there. People know us, but those who are new to the neighborhood is getting to know us. So we hope that you look over the presentation and the application and consider giving us capacity dollars, which are very, very hard to obtain for capacity building. I'm delighted.
Thank you. Any other questions or any comments? All right, hearing none, seeing none. Director, is there anything else that you'd like to share? As I stated earlier, this will collectively be second reading. It will take 3 readings to go through the process.
I'd just like to invite you to our launch, which is on Thursday, March 24th. You have a nice little palm card. See, this is something that we wouldn't have been able to do like this if we didn't have the funding. So it even has a QRC code. Isn't that something? We really are building up our technology. So that's all I would like to say, Madam Chair.
Right, thank you.
Through the chair,
Yes.
again, wanted to thank you for your leadership and your stewardship of this amazing organization, and we would be remiss if we didn't mention that the honorable councilwoman met her husband there 38 years ago.
Just a little bit ago.
Just a little bit, right?
Still 21. Y'all
Yeah,
figure it
right,
out.
right. Isn't that an honor? It's such an honor.
Yes, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So I'll make the motion to move R2024-0077 to the full council under second reading. Is there a second?
There's a second, if you will add my name.
Yes, ma'am.
Please add my name as well.
Thank you all.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you, Director,
Thank
for your
you.
time and your service. Madam Clerk, if you could read the next item into the record, please.
Resolution 2024-0087, authorizing Title 4D cooperative agreements with various providers in the total amount not to exceed $11,473,857.03 for child support services for the period January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024, for the providers listed 1 through 5 on the agenda.
To my colleagues, there is a proposed substitute you could pull out. Welcome, David.
Good afternoon, David Merriman, on behalf of the Department of Health and Human Services. In a second, I'm going to turn this over to Marcos and Rick Weiler and the team. But before I think we jump into it, is a routine matter and something that many council members have seen. Actually, you've all seen this multiple times. And so I want to pause for a second and reintroduce you to Jeff Bloom. Jeffrey Bloom is the acting director of the Office of Child Support Services. Tiffany Dobbins Brazelton is on a brief leave. And so she's just not available at this time. And I've asked Jeff to step into the role of the acting administrator, and he'll be here to lead the presentation. But I think before we just pivot into the actual detail of the matter before you, I'm just going to ask Jeff to come forward and just quickly reintroduce himself and share a few words about who he is. And then I think we can pivot right into the item. Jeff?
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Afternoon. My name is Jeffrey Bloom. As Director Merriman said, Interim Director at the Office of Child Support Services. I've been with the county at Office of Child Support Services since 2001 in a number of different roles, and look forward to this opportunity anyway. So I would say background anyway has been everything from the financial side of things over to performance evaluation, policy, and performance. So
Welcome. Thank you.
thank you.
My turn. Good afternoon, Marcos Cortez with Health and Human Services, again on behalf of the Office of Child Support Services. These are our standard Title 4D cooperative agreements that are mandated by the Ohio Revised Code and the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services regulations in order to specify the services which will be rendered pertaining to the collection of cash child support payments in accordance with applicable child support regulations. These Title 4D agreements enables the county to recover up to 66% reimbursement portion of the expenses incurred. Again, these are our standard contracts. This is usually the time frame that we bring these forward. It does take us some time to work with these other government entities to get the documentation that we need to be able to put these forward. Again, we have Interim Director Jeff Bloom and Business Services Administrator Rick Weiler, who could answer any more specific questions related to the process and fiscal matters. And again, you've heard earlier, there is a proposed resolution, proposed substitute to the resolution.
All right, Mr. Cortez, there's a lot of, can you speak a little bit to the proposed changes that are in the proposed substitute?
I'm going to hand it over to the Law Department.
All right.
Hi, Tyra Taylor, Chief Counsel, Health and Human Services. So the proposed substitute you have in front of you is just merely reflects a drafting error on behalf of the Law Department. They are not contracts. These are actually cooperative agreements. So the red changes just reflect a semantic and just kind of wordsmithing. There's no substantive changes.
Okay, thank you. That would have been my question.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Councilman Miller.
I'll make a motion to accept the proposed substitute as the version before the committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Miller, seconded by Turner. All in favor for the proposed substitute, please say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, is there anything else that you'd like to share? How often do we, did you say that we do this on an annual basis, these agreements?
These come before you annually, yes.
Okay.
And usually about this time frame. And we bring this to you now because we do need to have a signature before the end of March in order to be able to get the first quarter reimbursement. So we would ask that it's approved on second reading suspension.
All right. Any substantive changes in terms of the agreement from last year?
No.
I'll make a motion to move R20.
Ask questions?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Yes,
Thank you,
Councilman.
Madam Chairwoman, to Marcus, to our law chief. This is on the substantive agreements, and there's a whole bunch of agreements, I understand that, but there's 3 sections that agreement is not mentioned. And the one that I just have, Section 2, they shall be deemed approved by adoption of this resolution. What's to the extent that there's any exemptions are necessary under the county code and the contracting procedures, they shall be deemed approved by the adoption of this resolution. Can you explain that to me?
Yeah, that language is put in there because these were initially to be contracts and that this is just a procurement language. It just means that if there was any type of procurement issue that there's an exemption because these are OCSS contracts.
And through the chair, it'd be identified by the law department?
Yes.
Okay. And then the other 2 in the proposed substitute, are they also How are they-
Yes,
How
the
are they
same.
connected? Just same way?
Same way.
Okay, thank you for your explanation.
Sure.
Any other further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, hearing none. I'd like to move R20240087 to the full council under second reading suspension. Is there a second?
As amended, second.
Okay. As amended, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could read the next item into the record.
Resolution 2024-0088, authorizing an amendment to a contract with Young Women's Christian Association of Greater Cleveland, Ohio, doing business as YWCA Greater Cleveland for operation and case management services at the Norma Herr Women's Shelter for the period January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2024, to change the terms effective January 1st, 2024, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $2,536,793.
Thank you.
Again, David Merriman on behalf of the Department of Health and Human Services. I'm going to invite Melissa Surak, the Director of the Office of Homeless Services, to come up and present this item, as well as any other attendees that are here on behalf of the organization. She can draw them up as needed. Melissa?
Good afternoon, Council. Melissa Surak, Director of the Office of Homeless Services. I first just wanted to briefly and formally thank those of you council members who attended the ribbon cutting yesterday for 2020 Lakeside. It was a beautiful day and an exciting day on my behalf and the community's behalf. And for those of you that were unable to attend, I'd be happy to help coordinate an opportunity for you to do a tour. So thank you for that. With that said, I'm here today requesting a contract with the YWCA of Greater Cleveland for the Norma Herr Women's Center, which operates 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The YWA serves homeless women ages 18 and above by providing immediate, low-barrier access to safe and decent shelter in accordance with the Office of Homeless Services Advisory Board's adopted community standards for emergency shelters. The YWCA assists these women's efforts to return to stable housing as quickly as possible and connects them with services necessary to ensure long-term stable housing and self-sufficiency. Services and programming support identified subpopulations, including but not limited to individuals over 55, youth, individuals who self-identify as LGBTQ, pregnant guests, and those affected by trauma or other concerns, and veterans. Project goals for the shelter remain to operate a safe, trauma-informed, low-barrier emergency shelter for single adult women in accordance with our standards, provide meals, access to laundry, and employment and housing service linkages, and lastly, to develop and implement a permanent housing plan with each person. With me today, I have Cynthia Daly, as well as the President and Chief Executive Officer, Helen Forbes-Fields, to answer any additional questions you might have.
All right, welcome. Welcome, both of you ladies. Right. I just wanted to know, Director, is there any substantive changes from the last contract or the previous contract with this one? Any changes or anything like that?
Nothing significant at this time, Councilwoman.
Okay. Anything you ladies would like to share? How is everything going? We can give us a little update in terms of, I know you're going through renovations and all those issues.
We are.
But hopefully soon, we'll be at the end of the rainbow like we had yesterday, and we can be doing that same thing for the ladies.
Look forward to that and a ribbon cutting similar to what you had yesterday. As Melissa.
Excuse me, if you could just state your name for the record, please.
Sure, Helen Forbes-Fields.
Thank you.
CEO and President of YWCA. And we're appreciative of the contract with the county. Look forward to quick resolution of this contract. We are currently operating this shelter on our own dime until this contract is approved by the county. So we look to a quick resolution that way. I think Melissa has outlined the operation. We service approximately 200 women each day who seek shelter with us. We've had peaks and valleys over the summer. Our census increased dramatically, but we would say over the last month or two, it has decreased for whatever reason. We're not quite certain. But we're here to provide services to those who come to our doors. We're low barrier. We refuse no one. And appreciative of all the support that we receive, certainly from Melissa and the county.
First, I'd like to say thank you for being a partner. Much needed emergency shelter for our women. So we thank you for stepping up to that plate. We know that can bring challenges and just a lot of communication, and we try to work together to iron those things out. But thank you, because we didn't have many providers or agencies that wanted to do that. So we thank you on behalf of all the women that have to stay there. I did have a question in terms of Director Sirac said we serve 18 and above and women. So if they have children that they bring along with them that might not be female, what are the ages of the children that are allowed to stay there? Or do we try to move them out to family shelters?
We service only women,
Okay,
no families.
okay.
Yes. The families are going to other shelters that are funded by the county, such as Zelma George and others.
Okay, Director, how long has that change been? I know children used to reside in Norma Her.
To my knowledge, Councilwoman, and tenure, I've known it to be with the family shelters. Yeah, Zelma George, Westside Catholic Center, Family Promise.
Okay, with the danger of, or I've just heard that the Haven Home or something was going to close their doors. Who did they serve, first of all, and what is our response to that closure?
That's a great question, Councilwoman. Haven Home did transition to a maternity home. They ceased serving general family population January 31st of this year. At that time, we worked our office worked closely with LMM as they operate the family overflow. And right now, we're using alternative scattered site locations. We'll say that. In addition, we are in conversations with several folks regarding a new permanent location. And in addition to that, we're in conversations with Cindy Rios, who oversees Haven Home, to prioritize Continuum families when they open in the middle of March. So we have an interim and working on the long-term plan.
Yes. Open it up. Councilman Miller.
Madam Chair, Directors, what are the largest operational problems at Norma Her at this time?
I will probably turn that over to Cynthia Daly. Cynthia is our Executive VP of Programs, but I'd like to just add this, Councilman Miller. We could work on the shelter in all of its operations 24/7. But the YWCA is here to provide programs to a variety of communities. We service from 3-year-olds to 80-year-olds. But I could spend each and every day working on the shelter and still not resolve all of the operational issues that exist. But with that, I'll let Cynthia give you a bit more detail.
Cynthia Daly, Executive Vice President of Programs for the YWCA of Greater Cleveland. So currently we are having to operate our shelter while construction is happening. That has resulted in loss of meeting space and having to reassign where we have sleeping areas. So we have less meeting space available for holding services, both on-site and for our staff. The staff bathroom had to be relocated outside, and I don't know about you, but nobody wants to have to go outside to use the bathroom, so that's quite uncomfortable. There is now, we also lost storage space with the loss of space, so there is storage outside of the building. Again, it just makes daily operations more difficult. And our courtyard as well for the women had to be relocated during this construction period. And so just having to operate in a construction zone at the same time is not the most comfortable thing to do, but we are doing our best with that. We are also preparing to split into 2 locations come July, as soon as Walton is available, assuming Walton is available by that date. And that's going to present some new challenges as staffing continues to be an issue, as all employers are having that problem. With low staff, it just makes it more difficult for us to maintain our desired staffing numbers and provide the desired, safety level that we look for. But one of the things that came out of our outcome from 2023 is that we did see a decrease in incident reporting internally when we made a shift away from security guards and to a crisis intervention response team. And so that was a really positive outcome from that transition last year.
So, Madam Chair, Directors, when you mentioned about storage space, you're only talking about administrative storage space. You're not talking about the residents' lockers, are you?
So yes, the storage for items that we use to operate, their own items are still in the building with them, yes.
And Madam Chair, Directors, are residents free to come and go anytime they want, or are there restrictions on that?
We don't currently have any restrictions on coming and going from the building, so they can come and go as frequently as they need to.
And Madam Chair, Directors, how much comings and goings is there in the middle of the night, or is it mostly during the daytime?
There's some activity in the evenings. We have individuals who work evenings that come and go, and it's kind of active, but the evening hours are more quieter times of the day. I don't have a specific number. I'd have to do some specific research for total numbers coming and going, but it is the quieter hours, is the third shift, which is 11 p.m. to 7 a.m.
And I like to add that we don't force our guests out each and every day. We allow our guests to stay at the shelter throughout the day if that's what they choose to do.
And Madam Chair, Directors, what is the policy on drug and alcohol use in the building, and how is that policy enforced?
So it's absolutely not allowed. We don't have many rules at the shelter, but drug use on site is definitely one that is not allowed. There is an amnesty box upon before you even enter into the building. So guests have the opportunity to say, yes, I do have something on my person, and throw that away and come ahead and come into the building. If they are found on site with alcohol or drugs and using it, they are exited from the building. And there would be a suspension period for them, and then they could return at the end of that suspension period.
And Madam Chair, Director, how long would the suspension period typically be?
It will depend on whether or not they are repeat offenders. The suspension becomes longer, but it starts at 3 days.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
All right, on that point, in terms of suspension for, how does and I forget what you call, I'll say the caseworkers work with those individuals that are dealing with those kind of problems? How is the referral process to try to get them help?
So if they are working a housing plan with their assigned housing navigator, but are exited from shelter, they can still make appointments to meet with them. They're just not allowed to stay in the general population or sleep there for that evening.
Are we keeping any records, not that you have to, in terms of where, this might not happen all the time, where the ladies go?
If they choose to disclose it, we do, but most oftentimes they don't.
Councilman
Sweeney. Thanks. Chairwoman, it's nice seeing you ladies. It's always intimidating when three strong, independent thinking women are standing at the podium. Melissa, you said it was you said all the different reasons. You said single women. How do you identify? It's any woman, right? That's by herself, not single. I took single as married.
Yeah, just a female by herself.
Just by herself. Okay, and this is an extension of the previous, or the current contract?
Yes, this is a brand-new contract for their general Norma Hare.
Oh, it's okay. I just read it as to extend the time period. And then to extend something, in my eyes, through the chair, is an extension of the current contract.
Correct, sorry, yes.
So it's an extension?
Yes.
And through the chair, what's the normal, when a new is it always extended, or does a new contract come out and say, hi, we're going to put a new contract out and see what the contract materializes in the...
Depends, the council chair, it depends on our procurement process at that time. Also depends on, to be honest, a strategic route and making sure that there's no lapse, hopefully no lapse between operations and shelter, and if anything's changing in the scope of service as well. So all of those variables are considered in determining if it's a brand-new contract.
And through the chair, has it been extension after extension after extensions, or when's the last time it went out?
I believe 2 years ago, we did the RFP, but I can't mark that for certain, but it was fairly recent.
And are you anticipating doing one next year, or just time will tell?
We are considering a procurement for shelter in general with everything going on and the new facilities. And we are due for, we did a master RFP 2 years ago, so we would be due for that anyway at this time. So that's in the works.
Okay, through the chair, I'm just trying to understand the YWCA is just an outstanding organization, and for going year by year, it'd be probably more beneficial to them to lock in, because I don't think there's many other providers out there that will be able to provide this service at the high level in very difficult, trying times. So that's why I'm bringing it up as a possibility for their stability instead of going year to year, and they're putting money out, and just more people are comfortable with longer-term contracts. Through the chair. Is that?
Understood, and we've had those discussions. I don't know the last time we've considered it internally, but we're always considering whether it should be per year with the option to extend. So
that's in between, that's between the YWCA and the administration?
our office handles that and has those discussions internally based on funding.
So it's just internal discussions occur, and then after those decision is made, it is notified to the entities that are involved?
Yes.
And just on the point of going through what you're going through now with the, it was, when I went there, it affected me for the rest of my life. But knowing that the improvements were coming, but everybody knew we were going to experience this. The common area, I didn't know about the outside and outside, but everybody's prepared, and we have to work through it, and you have the system working with Melissa to get it to the finish line in the best way possible for the guests that you have there. So I just wanted to bring that out as a reflection, that we knew it was coming, we're managing through it, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. That's something. Madam Chair, may I have a point of personal privilege? Can you tell dear old Dad that Sweeney's still hanging around? Thank you.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Thank you, ladies. While I do a different end of the housing spectrum, I know how tough this piece is. So your work is incredibly important to us and to the community. One of the things I heard that I didn't think it was clear is that we should have had this before council sooner so that there was no gap in funding. This is on our side of the house exclusively, not their side, because I think a little over a year ago, Ms. Forbes-Fields said that our timing was not as efficient, to be polite, as she would like for it to be, and so she ends up using her lines of credit to cover costs that should have been reimbursed by us in a more timely manner. What are we doing to get ourselves together so that she has rarely to use her lines of credit to keep this shelter operating? I mean, the nonprofits are, we're the safety net, and they help us. It is our obligation to take care of people who are not fortunate at government. And the nonprofits take care of things we can't take care of, and we pay them to do that. Why are we, it's at least 60 days that we should have had this. We should have had this in November so that there would have been no gap. Am I misinterpreting something? I'm just asking, Madam Chair. Melissa?
Yes, to the councilwoman, and I'm sorry to learn that that is the case if they're on a line of credit. This particular contract, as you noted, is late. We were working with the provider to determine final 2023 spending and to determine the 2024 budgetary needs, which came to several budget revisions, and in addition to that, our office, as far as tightening things up as well, is working closely with legal to adopt and adapt different language to have in our contracts to increase, to have more effective budget on our end, as well as increase invoicing, which the YWCA does a great job at, but overall address invoicing issues that we're experiencing on our side as well, that then lead to delays in paying the vendor. So for this particular contract, that's why it was late.
Melissa, how do we get ahead of this? Because to me, this is a reoccurring problem, and I'd like to see us get as close to, in advance of these. Even if it's just a week in advance, that would be better than us being 60, 90 days behind. Is there a way for us to help? What are our options as an organization?
I think I could think more to the media. We are in the process of hiring an additional staff person that is slated to be working on contracts as well as monitoring, because there's monitoring that needs to be transpiring as well. So that's ultimately the permanent solution.
So we don't have enough staff in the field to do the compliance pieces? Am I hearing that?
That is correct, as far as the Office of Homeless Services, and that includes monitoring.
Okay.
The contracts department has been helping as well, so we've been outsourcing some pieces to them also.
Madam Chair, this is of concern to me. Because I know that I live in a nerdy world all by myself sometimes, but every time you draw down on your line of credit or letter of credit, there's an interest cost. And while we have an agreement with this agency, reimbursing the baseline does not take care of the cost of the interest that goes with having $100,000, $200,000 outstanding for 30 to 60 to 90 days.
Your concerns are fully noted. I believe we were trying to work on this since the budget hearings, or when I met with the directors all the way since June. And I believe Director Sirac was one of the first ones that I met with in trying to make sure that they had the operational staff that they needed. I don't even know if that's quite there. It's been posted, all that. I'll get an update from her when we sit down and meet. But all the different various pieces that go into having staff, renovations, all this that is going on has really been, and thank you again to YWCA, has been really the first time that I have noticed in this kind of contracting that it has been, delayed in some form or fashion. I don't know if it's because we have so much going on in homeless services, but as long as I've sat on this committee for 13 years, it's the first time that I've recognized, in particular to this specific department.
Okay.
Now, other departments, we have had those type of issues.
That's why I brought it up, because now it's here, and that is of concern to me, because I didn't think it was here before.
And
Sorry.
go ahead, Director.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to note also in the current situation, obviously, we don't want this to happen either. We do take into account, the YWCA does have an active ARPA contract right now that can be drawn down on, so there is an active contract that they have as well that they can invoice against.
And the ARPA contract, these costs are eligible for the ARPA contract as well? There's some overlap?
The majority of them are. If they weren't, it would be a simple budget request from me, and I would approve it in an email, and we'd move forward. So there would not be any hindrance to that.
As you know, I have another life, and so I come to the table with those biases, the things that government asks you to do. And as you also know, I was many decades ago, I was the Director of Development and Office of Homeless Services was under that department. And one of the things that's incredibly important to me as a service provider is that government provide the funding on the schedule in the contract, because it makes it harder for the nonprofits to do what we need for them to do. So that's why that's coming out today. It's like we all need to do a little bit better on this side of the table so they can do what they're supposed to do. And no, Helen did not call me and ask me to say any of this.
Helen should have called me.
Well, we're
It's
mentally
a
in
different thing
sync.
when we get a call.
But, Helen and I are in sync a lot of times on a lot of issues, political and personal. So it's a no-brainer for me to make these kinds of statements. We need for staff to understand why timing is so important.
And let me just add, since I was here last year where I truly did complain about payment being issued in a timely way, that has been improved dramatically. And so I have to thank Director Sirak and her department for that. I was talking about, until this contract is approved, the payments that we're making. And it's about $200,000 a month to operate the shelter. But we are appreciative of the process and how it has improved since I was here last year.
Any other questions or comments? All right, anything else you ladies would like to share? So I just had one final comment. I know we sat down and met in terms of some of the issues that were the largest operational problems. Has the communication between the three entities gotten better? So we have a operator, we have a funder, and then we have a location agency. So has that improved?
It has, and thank you to you, Councilwoman Conwell. It has.
Right. Well, and nothing else to share. This is not.
So do we need a vote here?
Yes, we need to
I'd like to
make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Right. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved by,
Madam Chair,
yes, Councilman.
is the motion for second reading or for second reading suspension?
Second reading suspension, please.
That is correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Move
this
it as
is-
quickly as possible.
In the second?
Second.
All right. So it's been moved and seconded for second reading suspension. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all for coming out. It's not easy work that we do up here, but we definitely want to give a shout out to all of our partners that makes Health and Human Services safety net a reality. Thank you to all of you. Madam Clerk, if you could bring up the presenters for today.
The next item will be a presentation from the Center for Community Solutions.
Thank you, and good afternoon
Good afternoon.
to the chairperson and to the members of the council. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Emily Campbell. I'm the president and chief executive officer of the Center for Community Solutions. Delighted to be here today to say hello and also to share a little bit about what our organization is up to and has been doing. I know that you are very familiar with my predecessor, John Corlett, who worked closely with the council. I will say that I've been with the Center for Community Solutions for 17 years, and early in my time with the organization, had the opportunity to collaborate with Cuyahoga County and many people across the Health and Human Services community as part of the people that were working through the government transition to a council and executive staff making sure that Health and Human Services was well protected. And I actually authored the final report of the Health and Human Services Transition Advisory Committee all those years ago. So it's great to re-engage with the work in a more substantive way. As I'm sure you're familiar, if we could pull up my slides, I would appreciate it. The Center for Community Solutions, and head to the next one, is a nonpartisan think tank working to improve health, social, and economic conditions here in Cuyahoga County and throughout the state of Ohio. We focus on public policy advocacy, research, and analysis. Founded here in Cleveland in 1913, we have a century-long legacy of influencing policy, practices, and perspectives, and are very interested in activating systems change through public policy. If we can go to the next slide, you will see a photo of our team. We are a team of about 25 individuals. Our main office is here in Cleveland in Cuyahoga County, and we also have an office in Columbus that focuses on state government. We see ourselves as a collaborator with all of you in county government. As an advocacy organization, we will naturally seek policy improvements, and I expect to be before this council in the future talking about some policies that can be changed to improve circumstances for residents. But more often than not, our interests align very closely. We want the same things that you want and hope to be a resource for all of you. One staff change I want to mention is that our longtime colleague, Will Tarter, is leaving the Center for Community Solutions to head to LMM, where he will serve as Director of Advocacy. And it's bittersweet. Where we're sad to see him go, we know that he will continue his strong advocacy work on issues that are most important to the community. But as you can see, we have a deep bench of experts who are true experts on the social service system, in applied research, and in state policy and public budgets. If we can go to the next slide. Much of my work over the last few years has focused on the causes and consequences of poverty, and I had the opportunity to address the City Club of Cleveland a few weeks ago. In the packet that we've provided, you have those remarks and some of the information that I was able to share. There I talked about 5 things we all need to understand about poverty in Cleveland. But looking at Cuyahoga County, we see some very similar trends. This chart shows historically the total population of Cuyahoga County, as well as the number of people in poverty. We're going back to 1960 to before Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty. What we see in Cuyahoga County is that the population has fallen since the 1960s, but largely evened out over the last few decades. But the number of people living in poverty in this community has remained very, very steady. And in fact, in 1960, there were 197,446 Cuyahoga County residents who were living in poverty. In 2022, that number is 198,417. It's only 1,000 people difference. That is not much change when we are looking over a total population. What has changed is where those people are living. So the population of people in poverty in Cleveland has also remained quite steady, but has actually dropped slightly over the decades, while the number of people living in poverty in communities outside of Cleveland in Cuyahoga County has increased. If we can go to the next slide, you'll see the poverty rate, so the share of people in poverty over the course of time. Today, we sit at 16.4% of our neighbors are living below the poverty threshold, which is about $25,000 a year in earnings for a family of 3. It's about 1 in 7 of our neighbors. And on the next slide, you see a map of where people are living. Notice that there's no white areas. Everywhere in this county, there are people who are struggling and people who are living in poverty, but unfortunately, the geographic patterns largely mirror the historically red-line neighborhoods. And as we look across health and social and economic conditions, we see this same geographic pattern time after time. This is unacceptable. We also know, if we can go to the next slide, that need is increasing within our community. This data comes from a survey that the Center for Community Solutions conducted last year in collaboration with Step Forward, which was targeted to low-income residents of Cuyahoga County. And what we saw are increased needs since before the pandemic. We asked the same question in 2019 that we did in 2023, and you can see that the dark bars are higher across the board. Of particular note, 62% of residents, low-income residents in Cuyahoga County are reporting that they had to make at least one trade-off among necessities because of cost over the course of the last few years. And they are most often having to choose between buying food or paying for utilities, transportation, or housing. You can see all of this information on our website, communitysolutions.com, and if you search for Poverty Speaks, we will continue to put out data and information. We also had the opportunity to partner with the Division of Senior and Adult Services here in Cuyahoga County to ask older adults some of the same questions, and found that 46% of older adult residents in Cuyahoga County were forced to choose between necessities over the last year due to increased costs, and the thing that they are giving up most often is food. Again, across the board, we are seeing more need today than pre-pandemic. The next slide shows the things that people today are saying they needed help with and the areas where they didn't get the help they need, or they're reporting they're not getting the help they need. What you will notice is that Cuyahoga County is connected with almost all of these and has a vital role to play in providing services to our neighbors, to the eligibility determinations, managing the caseloads, and contracting with agencies to provide vital health and social services. And that's why the Center for Community Solutions has endorsed Issue 26, the Health and Human Service Levy, and is a strong supporter of the campaign. I'm personally a community co-chair of the campaign because we know how important those local resources to address local needs are in filling in the places where state and federal government does not fund. And in fact, our research is showing that more than 80% of the $4 billion invested in Cuyahoga County every year for health and human services is coming from government sources, the federal, the state, the county government. So thank you for your support of these important programs over the years. The next slide is a sample from the Feeling the Pinch study that I mentioned earlier, looking at conditions facing older adults, especially in the wake of record levels of inflation and increased costs. What we see is that 1 in 5 of our older neighbors wouldn't be able to pay for a $400 emergency, which forces those tough choices where really people have no choice. This report will be publicly released very soon, and we're pleased to be able to partner with Cuyahoga County and with other community partners to bring this information to light. The next slide shows another publication that we've recently released, which looks at the status of women and girls, compiling over 160 indicators from more than a dozen sources on showing the health, social, and economic conditions that are facing women and girls across our state. You have in your packet the fact sheet for Cuyahoga County. We've done them for all 88 in the state. But one of the things that we noticed is that women in our community and in communities across the state are more likely to have completed a bachelor's degree than their male counterparts, and yet we still see a persistent wage gap. And so Community Solutions is taking a hard look at why that is. What are the things that are driving some of these gaps that we see, not only between sex and gender, but also between different racial and ethnic groups. The next slide shows information from those fact sheets on maternity care, births, and birth outcomes. You'll immediately notice that on most birth outcomes, Cuyahoga County is not performing any better than the state average. But the Center for Community Solutions has been in conversations and looks forward to collaborating with Cuyahoga County along with the newly formed Advisory Council on Women's Health. So we believe that together we can do a lot of things to try and improve these conditions. These fact sheets are just one example of some of the data that we pull together, make available to the broad community. I'm pleased to let you know that later this year, we expect to put out fact sheets looking at data for each of the Cuyahoga County Council districts on health, social, and economic conditions. It's been a number of years since Community Solutions was able to do that, and you can expect to see those in the fall, and we will be sure to reach out to each of you to share data for the district that you're representing, as well as the county as a whole. So finally, I wanted to emphasize that the Center for Community Solutions hopes to be a resource for each of you and for Cuyahoga County because our missions align in so many ways. I'm joined here today by several of my colleagues, and a few that I wanted to highlight is Brandy Davis, who serves as our Medicaid Policy Fellow, making sure that that program is working as effectively and efficiently as it can to address health and so many other needs, as well as Natasha Techi-Micah, who is a public policy and external affairs associate, very focused on maternal and infant health and public health issues. So please, we invite you to connect with Community Solutions, reach out, and let us know if there are areas of investigation that would be helpful to you as you go through your important work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll open it up for any questions from my colleague.
Madam Chair.
Councilman Miller?
Just a comment that at all levels of government, the respect for research, fact, and science has been under a major challenge, and for many years the Center for Community Solutions has been a beacon of light in terms of encouraging people to collect good information and using that information to inform policy decisions. And it's a role that's never been more important than it is today. And so I just appreciate your efforts and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you for those kind words.
All right, I thank you for coming and introducing yourself. I think we had met briefly. Always welcome to share what the Center for Community Solutions is working on or will be working on. We're going to sorely miss Mr. Tarter. He has given us ideas, has shared policy and followed policies that were going on downstate and how it connected here. Big shoes to fill. Lucky I'm on the mic because I'm hearing of it. Usually he'll call about anything else, but of course, congratulations on you moving forward and doing something a little different. I'm sure we'll still see you here in the chambers, being directly working with LMM, who also does awesome work and are great partners with the county. So is the person fulfilling his shoes or role, is she here, he here?
We have not filled it yet. It's breaking news.
Okay, breaking news, all right. Well, thank you all again for all that you do, and especially for the dynamic event that you had with DSAS. That was appreciated information, inflationary cost, how it's not only impacting us, but our seniors that are already juggling what they should pay for. So thank you for keeping us updated on that news. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Committee, any miscellaneous business? The only thing that I would share is that, we've sat in these seats, many of us, a couple of us have sat in these seats since the beginning, this new form of government, and we kept hearing this statistic 2030, that the senior tsunami in 2030, where 60% of the residents will be 60 or older, has always, been brought across when the director of DSAS or Community Solutions or any of the agencies that are really working with our senior population has put before us. So I met with Walter P. on how we start to prepare for the tsunami over the next 3 biennial budget cycles. That's all we have left. Believe it or not, it's gotten really close. So we don't think that we need to legislate anything in terms of that, but I would just ask my colleagues on this committee to be supportive in those next 3 biennial budgets and making sure that we're putting them first. We know our dear colleague, Michael Gallagher, as well as a few others, have spearheaded maybe a possible levy, things of that nature. Well, that's way beyond us, but if we make sure that we're focusing on those next 3 biennial budget cycles, and increasing and making sure that hot meals and food and transportation is there, options program is there, would be very appreciative. So I wanted to ask if any of you had any, know who the lobbyists are downstate. There's a few areas that we probably need to get a better lobbying for us and our seniors in terms of, I can't think of the program, abuse and neglect for our seniors, and homestead and the home protective services.
So there are some groups that do full-fledged lobbying for seniors and groups with disabilities. I'm actually going to Columbus tomorrow to talk to someone who's in the housing world that shares that concern as part of a group. So I will text you tomorrow who that group is, so that we can make sure that we're part of that dialogue.
Sweeney. Miller.
Just a comment that that Cuyahoga County has hired ongoing people, a lobby for us in Columbus. So we should touch base with them, and it might not hurt to ask them to come and present to us, and we could share our concerns regarding senior services.
Okay. Could you follow up on that, Councilman Miller?
Sure.
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes, Mr. Sweeney.
I thank you for highlighting this, but I truly believe the most effective lobbyist is us. And knowing the landscape of the legislature down there. And for the next 2 years, we're going to know who our governor is. Next year, we're not going to know who the Speaker of the House is until their vote is over. We're pretty confident we'll know who the President of the Senate will be. But I think it should be an all-out effort by every one of us with our magic pins throughout leading with Cuyahoga County. But we don't do that enough. And for this one, I think we have our lobbyists, we pay them, they have all the relationships, but I think we have enough relationships throughout the state as elected officials with our local representative, both in the Senate and the House, to put the full court press on sharing the realities and the need for this particular, because everybody has need throughout the country, throughout the state, throughout the county. But right now, it's showtime, and I'll call this number one for me. And if we all do it together and stop doing this, that's the best way I think we can be successful. I got on my soapbox a little bit, but I think that's very genuine and the most important way we can use our positions to help
Madam
advance
Chair.
this one.
I think I saw Miller first and then Stevens.
So one other comment is that we also have the Cuyahoga, the County Commissioners Association, and typically they're not able to help us that much because they represent counties all over the state, and the needs and the political opinions across the various counties are so different that it's hard for them to come to a consensus about anything that amounts to anything. But senior services might be something where a consensus is possible because it affects every county and people across the political spectrum are concerned about it. So that might be another avenue of approach.
And we know it's coming because it's a number. 59's turned to 60, 58's turned to 59, and 59's turned to 60. And I'm 60, so I'm turning to 61.
Jeez.
Councilwoman?
One of the reasons I think it's incredibly important for us to partner with other parties is that the legislature has become more and more partisan, as you know, Mr. Sweeney, and having allies on the other side of the aisle. For example, my dear friend Janine Boyd has not been able to get Aisha's Law passed by both houses of the legislature because of their bipartisan focus. Rather than negotiating something substantive that can handle how we handle domestic violence in this state. And so I'm concerned that something that is of substance, because there's only one baby at this table right now, that's baby sister right here. The rest of us are looking at 60 or have passed it. And the reality is that this is something substantive, because while we have pensions because of our service to the public, there are a lot of people who thought they had pensions and their employers did something with the reserve funds, or they did not have the fortune to work in places that created even opportunities for 401ks or 403bs. And so I think it is incumbent of us to find the partners that will get the legislature to say yes to better measures. And so that's why I think it's important. You will know who some of those who are willing to partner are better than I will, but I will also know who some of the bodies that carry juice because they have deep pockets will be, to convince some of those folks who have not looked at some of the social service aspects that you and I would automatically be inclined to look at. So I would say that while our participation is important, our relationships and pushing those relationships are equally as important.
Or more. And through the chair, Huffman's going to the House, and Macaulay's going to be the president. And that's, if Huffman was the one causing Representative Boyd's issue not to move forward, we have another bite at the apple. So that's how my thought process would work. That's why I talked about
Well, I'd
changing.
prefer not to discuss that, gentlemen. And I use that term as they do in the House.
I'm just, we have, I mean, it's, leadership change gives you an opportunity to try to advance something that we have a true passion about. I know Jeannie had a, I mean, that was so frustrating for her and all of us, basically. Sorry for, Madam Chairwoman.
I didn't know. We're on miscellaneous. We're in discussion time. So I just wanted to put that on your hearts and minds, because it's definitely been on mine, and we need to prepare for it. So if without anything else, this meeting is adjourned.